What if flaws doesn't exist?
Okay, so this question is very general. So to answer this, you must first find out what is a flaw, or more specifically, what can qualify as a flaw. So based on a Google search result, a flaw is the lower surface of the room on which one may walk on.
So, what is exactly the lower surface of the room that you talk about? Like, what can qualify as that thing?
Okay, so the lower surface of a room, you can say it's whatever the lower surface is made out of, which can be wooden panels, it can be stone panels, whatever. But some people say that those panels are technically not the bottom of the room, and that the bottom of the room is actually the dirt and earth of the earth. We'll consider both situations. Okay.
So, in this video, we'll be talking about three different scenarios in which flaws are defined differently. So, the first scenario is we'll be taking into the account the panels at the bottom of the rooms, the wooden panel or the stone panel or whatever panels that are defined as flaws, but the earth itself is not defined as a flaw. The second scenario will be both the panels at the bottom of the room and the earth itself are both counted as a flaw. Since the earth will be gone in this scenario, there will be no gravity by the planet Earth. On the third scenario, both the earth and the bottom panels will be gone too, but the gravity of the earth will still stay there existing. In the first scenario, the panels at the bottom of a room are considered to be a flaw, while the planet Earth itself will not be counted as a flaw. If flaws doesn't exist in this situation, we can say that buildings will not contain dead panels at the bottom of a room that we mentioned earlier. Thus, multi-story buildings will cease to exist, as only people can walk on the dirt on the ground, and not the panels that decide how many stories a building should have.
In this scenario, shoes will also be defined as a flaw, as the lower surface of a shoe and sock is something that you step and walk on. Since shoes and socks, like all the panels at the bottom of your room, will not exist, you would have to walk barefooted on the ground on planet Earth.
This would mean that without a surface of protection separating our bare skin from the germs and fungi on the ground, we will have a higher chance of catching a skin infection or disease from the ground when we walk on it. It would also be less comfortable to walk on the ground without shoes and socks to cushion your feet from the jagged surfaces of rocks and protrusions of the ground.
This would lead to overall human suffering and population decrease, as more and more people would die from food infections, foot bleeding, and other food-related deaths. Foot creams that ease the pain of the foot would be used more often, leading it to become a necessity in everyday life.
Let's say that the earth also counts as a flaw, and is also gone with the rest of the buildings. We will be floating in space. Now there is no uncertainty on whether we will die or not, because we all will die though. But what exactly do we die from? Cosmic rays or hypothermia? Well, you would die in about 15 seconds, not from the extreme cold, but from the lack of oxygen for various reasons. Firstly, the vacuum of outer space will remove all the air from your lungs because that's how pressure works. With no oxygen in your lungs, you will quickly die from asphyxiation, also known as no air.
Secondly, the negative 270 degrees Celsius temperature of space will freeze you solid in less than a day. However, if you stray too close to a star, you will get burned. But what about decomposition? Thankfully, the gut bacteria that would eat you from the inside will likely not function due to the fact that water boils in space, which is a vacuum. And in general, things do not function without water. Now, this might sound like terrible news, but there is one very slight ray of hope: the International Space Station. Due to the zero-G environment of space, it is not physically possible to walk on the International Space Station, as there is no up or down, and everything is a wall that you can bounce on. The International Space Station will be unaffected. Now, since there are usually about 6 people on the ISS at one time, these 6 people will be the only humans left alive.
However, like the ISS, the dead human corpses will float around, too small to be affected by any object's gravitational pull to form an orbit except for the sun.
Now let's consider the third scenario. The Earth is gone, but magically, the gravity is still with us. Now, the first thing our dead corpses would do is accelerate downwards towards where the center of the Earth used to be. but because there's no Earth in the way, we will continue moving away from the gravitational center, with whatever remaining air slowly falling into the center. We will slowly slow down because of air resistance, and Earth will become a small tiny gas planet magically held together.
Humans will also eventually spiral towards the gravitational center and oddly enough have air, though not like there will be much left of us. The ISS would still continue on as if nothing has happened, so the human population would still be around 6. However, because of asteroids, the Earth is gaining about 40 or 41,000 tons per year, meaning finally we would have a flaw, so maybe, just maybe, humanity might survive for a little longer.
Fun facts. Donald Trump likes his flaws. The advertising for the Trump International Hotel Tower in Vancouver claims it is 6 floors taller than it actually is. Imagine if you're a firefighter.
Another fun fact, some countries, like China, disagrees with Trump about floors being good. In some multi-story buildings there, the floors with the number 4 contained will be removed from lift buttons, making them inaccessible to the public. The number 4, when read in Chinese, sounds like the word death in Chinese. Thus China thinks that it's bad luck to have things associated with that number. In summary, if panels at the bottom of a room stop existing, there will be no such thing as a skyscraper and your foot will hurt a lot.
If both that and the Earth just itself stop existing, the whole of human population, except for the 6 people in the ISS, would instantly die, or about die in 15 seconds.
If panels at the bottom of a room and the Earth itself stop existing, but the gravitational pull of Earth somehow remains, all the air will accumulate at what once was the center of Earth and will be put there too, surviving for a little while on the little amount of air that is left. The people at the ISS would still be living a good life, unlike all the corpses floating around in space.
In conclusion, in this video, we have discussed what if flaws didn't exist in 3 different scenarios. Overall, the world would be pretty sad without them to walk on. So now you know how important flaws are.